Right. Let me just drop a message to Taku because God knows. Right, cool. Okay. Hello, Pei Wen. Been a while.
Hello.
Did you just wake up?
No, I came from lunch.
Oh. Nom nom nom. I'm only gonna eat after I do. Hang on, she says she's coming. Do I have to summon her every time? Hang on, let me ask her in the chat, right? Summon. Oh boy. By the way, did you manage to get your book list? By the way, Nat, that's you. Because you're the only one who needs a book list right now.
Sorry?
Do you have your book lists
Book
levels?
list? Oh no, they haven't sent it. I already asked them, but they kept on saying they'll send out the email soon.
People need to define the definition soon.
Yeah, I know. I asked them 3 times. Even in a bit.
Oh crap, hang on, give me a sec. Righty. Let's begin. So the 2 chapters today is mainly focused on the villains. I'm not really that interested in the Edmond this time because he really has like less than 20 lines. This particular these 2 chapters. What is important in these 2 chapters are of course the villains. You know, there's only one great villain, quote unquote, in this part so far. So the Count of Monte Cristo, chapter 3 and 4, the fool, the snake, and the idiot. And I think you guys can kind of guess who fits who. I will not have any chapter selections this time because I've organized it in a way which is that I need Danglas to be last because he is quite there's a lot to talk about him in terms of the depth that Duma kind of wrote his dialogue and also how he acted and he behaved. So I'm leaving him last. Of course, the first person is Fernand. Now, before I begin, anybody have any interesting things they want to share about chapter 3 and 4? Any realizations? Any sudden, waking up and go like, oh my god, this person actually reminds me of someone? No. Interesting. Well, if the 3 villains don't remind you guys of anyone, I'm not quite sure if you guys are fortunate or you guys just don't know what to look for yet. Good news is, Lemoire here to tell you what to look for. Some of some of the things that we are going to talk about today are kind of tragic, especially a particular someone who is a very bad friend. I think we know who is. Okay, hang on. What? Hang on. Oh, I wanted to let you know that I watched Kung Fu Panda 3 last night and you reminded me of Master Shifu. Can I not be Master Shifu? He's so grumpy. He's like such a grumpy, whiny person all the time. If you say that oh, what is 3? Kung Fu Panda 3. If watch 2 and tell me who better. But Master Shifu's so grumpy though. Why do I have to be the grumpy one? And by the way, he's old. Yeah, sure. He's more like the panda, at least the board. cute, you know. Then again, if we didn't try so hard to preserve pandas, pandas would have been extinct by now. Okay, so the first character we're going to talk about is Fernan. Now, I will try not to swear when I talk about this guy because this guy is quite a piece of work. So, all each of the three characters represent something different in terms of the people you meet in your life. Now, unfortunately, they represent the relatively more negative ones. In a way, they also encapsulate emotions. In a way, so each of them have their own emotions and they represent different aspects in your life. I'll explain for none first, and I'll see if you guys understand because it does lend in a bit of depth of why the character is written this way. Now, as you can see, the first line I say is the Fernan. I call him the fool. In the book, Bangla described him as a coward. I do not want to use the word coward yet until later on when he shows up again, and that's when we use the word coward, and then that's where the word coward or why we describe him as a coward makes more sense. Um, if I have to label the him using a single line in the whole story or even in chapter 3 and 4 itself, is he's the action force with zero brains. He's the guy or girl, kind of do gender doesn't really mean that you have it, but he's basically the character that just knows what he wants. In this situation, he wants to marry Mercedes, and Mercedes just flat out rejected him. Okay, he got, which is kind of funny. Actually, a slight tangent before we continue. If you guys actually read, if you guys actually read between the lines, what Mercedes is trying to tell him, which is she's basically telling him that you're good enough as a friend and as a cousin. Anything else, no. So he's not just friend zone; he's like cousin zone. So up to you to decide if you want to feel bad for this guy or not. So what is it that he wants? Going back to what I was saying, he wants to marry Mercedes. What's the problem? Mercedes in love with Dantes. Now, what makes him such, in a way, a bad guy? I don't want to use the word villain because I'm insulting villains by calling him a villain, but what makes him such a bad person is, right, he does not know how to say no. Sorry, he doesn't know how to accept no. So asking, and also you notice my second blue point, I says asking again, right? Because the chapter 3 starts when he says like, oh, it's that time of the year again, it's Easter, great for weddings. Do you want to reconsider? And actually, funny enough, the next line, Mercedes, literally, you can hear her roll her eyes, and she says that, how many times are you going to ask me this stupid question? Like, honestly, if Duma wrote that she slaps him, I'm like, I can kind of take it. So he gets rejected, God knows how many times by now, right? So what he realized then was, you know what? Okay, fine. Maybe she doesn't accept me because I'm not somebody yet. Okay, kind of relating back to what Kaderus said to Edmond in chapter 2, right? Which is that, Mercedes will not accept you. Sorry, Mercedes will accept you now surely because you're a captain. So Fernand kind of, you can see Fernand's brain, right, go through multiple options to really, really try to convince Mercedes to marry him. So the first thing is, I will be a sailor, right? And Mercedes literally just tell him, you will do no such thing. You're not a sailor, you're a soldier. Now, the reason why he's a soldier, I didn't manage to dig a lot about this, but what I'm guessing is because he's not French. Fernand's not French, he's actually Spanish, and he is part of the small Spanish community that moved to Marseille and lived there. So I would speculate that the French government just kind of does not give a crap that they are staying there as long as they are able to be conscripted and to be part of the French army. As long as that's done, then they are okay with it. I think that's what it means. So Mercedes basically tells him, that's not your job. That's not what you are meant to be. You're not meant to be a sailor. You're meant to be a soldier. The significance of actually him wanting to be a sailor is actually also partly because he's trying, this is my opinion, he's trying to emulate Edmond because Edmond is a sailor, right? So he thought that if he tried to do the things that Edmond is doing, she might fall in love with him and decide to marry him. Problem is, Mercedes basically just shuts him down at every point in the conversation. So he kind of hinted on violence multiple times when they were talking in Mercedes's house. And Mercedes basically says this line, which is the fourth bullet point, right? Believe me, when a woman loves a man, you do not win her heart by crossing swords with him. So this is why I say that he is a force with no brains. He is just like an emotion of anger and jealousy, and he will do whatever it takes to get what he wants. But he never really considers the how, and if the how is actually is correct's not quite the word here, but the if the how is efficient, is effective, right? And then he so like I said, his brain ran through multiple tactics, right? So his first one is, I'll ask you again. You rejected me. Fine. I will try to tell you, I will do this, and then I will be somebody. Then surely, then you will marry me and love me. And she's like, no, that will not change anything. And by the way, you are not that. You are a soldier. So that doesn't work. And then he kind of hints that, what if I fight him? What if I make him my enemy? And she's like, you do that. I didn't write it here, but you do that, I will hate you. And by the way, if Edmond dies, I will kill myself rather than marry you. So he's basically like, no matter what he does, he cannot get the thing that he wants. So what he does then is he tries something that's relatively sneaky and honestly is quite insidious, which is that it starts hinting that maybe Edmond is dead. He's just saying that, the sea is so grim though. Are you sure? So this goes back to what I talked about in chapter 2, which is that the significance of Edmond going to sea and coming back 3 months later to see his father at Mercedes first is not just simply out of fear piety as well. It's also because whenever a sailor goes out to sea, you never know if that's going to be their last. Again, that this is during a time where if you get lost in sea, nobody can find you. There's nothing to track you at all, right? So he basically is saying that, oh, but what if, God feels very unhappy today and decides to make the sea very dangerous stuff? And Mercedes immediately shuts him down and saying, how can you? I thought you're a good person, but by saying this, you kind of tell me that you're not. I'm paraphrasing, okay, but that's basically what she says. So again, you see what I mean when I say that he's a bit of. Honestly, when I chose the word the fool for him, it's kind of inappropriate in a way because he's not entirely a moron, but at the same time, he's a moronic in a way, which is that he really only knows how to do something, but he doesn't know how to think about what to do. He doesn't seem to have come up with ideas and stuff like that. Now, the most telling thing about him is that he only cares for Mercedes if and only if Mercedes is his. Now, do you guys understand what this means? To care for someone only if they are yours. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that they're romantically related to you, but you only care for them if they fulfill certain things for you. Second. Okay, so somebody messaged to me and says Sundre. No. A Sundre is very different. Sundre is that he or she pretends not to care, but they actually do. There's a huge difference. Yes, it is as kind of, yes, correct. So it is as if he's kind of going like, it is his own sense of payback, right? He kind of goes like, oh, because you don't accept me, why should I show any compassion or pity to you, Which is actually kind of a red flag in a way because you see, he made no attempt to wipe the tears that were running down Mercedes' cheeks, yet he would have given a glass of his own blood for each of those tears, but they were shed for another. So the emotion is real, right? Sadness. So generally speaking, even though the person you might not really like the person or you might not even know the person, but when somebody is crying or they're sad, right? You ought to kind of at least be human and go like, that's actually kind of sad, right? He kind of just goes like, nah, you're not crying for me anyway. Why should I even bother? So, and somebody actually said manipulation at its finest. In a way, yes. Honestly speaking, this guy is very piss poor at manipulation. Okay, this kind of like emotional manipulation in a way, which is that he is reacting to the emotion, which is like I said just now. He's going like, you're not crying for me. Why should I care? You're not mine, so why should I care? So in a way, yes. If you think that this is a form of manipulation, it definitely is. So you see, this is what I mean. He kind of shuffles through multiple tactics. So now, after instilling doubt that he might be dead, and Mercedes just like figuratively stabbed him, he continues doing it by saying, "But what if he's unfaithful? What if he goes to another woman and stuff like that?" And the problem right now is that nothing he says will move the woman because the woman just tries to say that he will never do anything like that to me. And by the way, she even said that if he dies in the sea right now, I will know that he dies loving me. So he's just literally like, okay, fine, what the heck am I supposed to do to make anything work at this point? So Fernand really, really comes off like a very immature man who just goes like, I want this and do whatever it takes to get it. But he doesn't really understand that one, sometimes you can't do that. That's one. And two, it also shows that he has a darker side to why he wants to marry Mercedes. It's not because he really loves her, maybe, because of if you really care for her, right, it doesn't matter whether she cries or not, you would kind of try to go and comfort her. So I guess that's the reason why I feel that the word "the fool" is very fitting for him, because he really just comes off like some edgy, immature teenage guy who's, to be real honest, he's like 21. So like angsty and stuff like that. So honestly speaking, this guy and the worst part for him is this: in the next chapter, right? And in the next chapter, when he's with Dangla, okay, the most stupidest thing that he could have ever done, and the most stupidest thing anybody could have ever done in order to attain what you want, is to be a tool to other people. So what happened was that in chapter 4, right? He literally ran out from the house, right? He ran out. He tried to convince Mercedes to marry him. Tried to convince Mercedes that Edmond might be blah and blah, and nothing worked. He ran out of house and he started like look like a mad person, and he said that who will deliver me from him? It is as if he's begging God to do something so that he can get what he wants. And Viola, two people shows up in the place and they basically call out for him. And the two people are Cadarus and Dangla. This is where our two other villains come in. And we will talk about Cadarus after this slide, which is the next thing. But for now, let's wrap up Fernand first. Now, what happened about Fernand was, you guys will notice that when he was called over, right? In the book, he kind of went like, "You called for me, right?" And then and Cadarus like, "No, you look like you're so in such distraught and stuff." Now, I'll talk about more about Cadarus later, but he basically is not helping, okay, at all. Whether he knows it or not, he's really not helping the situation. Now, what happened was that we can really see that he's really a creature of emotion. He really, really is like angry. He's like, I will do whatever it takes, right? And he says that I want to put the knife in the creature. You see, he doesn't even refer to Edmond as a man. He's a creature, right? So he told Dangla, right, I want to kill him, but I can't because Mercedes said that she will kill himself. So sorry, Mercedes said she will kill herself, right? So he's basically stuck in a dilemma where he wants to do something about Edmond, but the moment he does something at Edmond, he loses what he wants. So he feels like he's stuck in the middle of nowhere. So basically, he just doesn't have the brains to fix the problem. Okay. And then you also see again, oh, I couldn't ask for anything better. Let him come and challenge me. So this is when after he and Dangla kind of like spoke about, what if he's released from prison, and then and Dangla kind of hinted to him that, surely Edmond will come and find whoever that's responsible. And he didn't even hesitate and blink. He just said that, sure, come, let's fight. So this really tells you that this guy is just straight up like, I will solve problems with my fist. The problem is that this is a problem he can't solve with his fist. Now, fortunately for him and unfortunately for him, he meets somebody that can actually complement his weakness and help him out with this, which is Dangla, which we'll talk about it later. Now, arguably the most unforgivable thing for Fernand, and in a way for people in general, human beings in general, is that when you volunteer to be a tool. Now, there's a difference between when you're manipulated into doing something and when you volunteer. Frankly, Dangla played him very, 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 very hard. Like he's taking candy from a baby, literally that. We will see later when we talk about Dangla. So he volunteers to be the instrument to ruin Edmond, right? See, he says here, it does not matter to me if you have some bone to pick with Dantes, right? I just don't like him, right? But if you give me a way to get rid of him without killing him, I will do it. Willingly. By the way, Dangla asked him that, are you interested in betraying him? And he didn't. He just basically raised his hand and said, I volunteer as tribute. I'm like, okay, if you really want to go it that way. And you see Fernand do this when he picks up the paper that Dangla threw aside. This is what I mean by Fernand got played really hard by Dangla, because he just knows emotionally, this is what I want to do, this is what I want, and I'm going to do this to get it. Problem is that he kind of didn't think any further than that. Now, what does Fernand represent when we try to bring his character out into a much more into people, right? Human beings in general. He represents what happens when your desire overtakes you. It doesn't have to be sexual desire. It can be the need to want something, anything. It can be material, which is I think you guys know what material means. Things that you can hold on things, touch, or even emotional, which is why we have people who are like obsessed with people, right? Infatuations, right? They just literally think that the other person's in love with them and stuff like that. So what happens then is your brain doesn't work. Your emotions is doing the talking to you. And what happens then is you become extremely susceptible to being manipulated by people. So you will see some people have this kind of problem. I actually don't think problem is the right word. They have this kind of struggle. Struggle is a better word, which is that they crave for something. It can be anything. It can be something as mild as you always wanted to buy something, and then you work very hard for it, and then you get the money to and buy it. So this is the positive side of your desire and your want, because without desire there's no motivation, right? So that's the good part of it. But the moment you amp it up too high, it it becomes an obsession. It overtakes you. So then you become like obsessed with trying to get it, and at that point, you become extremely susceptible for people to bait you to do a lot of things where they'll go like, oh, I know you want this thing. If you do this thing, you can get it. And sometimes without even thinking, you just do it. Right? So going back to the example of you wanting to buy something. Now, like I said again, it's not bad, because usually when you want something and you're motivated to go get it, you actually find a way to go buy something or whatever and work your way through, right? But if it's too much and you don't know how to weigh the risk and what is right and what is wrong, what happens then is you will just do whatever it takes to get something. Okay? Some of you people will sell your souls if I tell you that you can, as an example, right? You can get your just as an example, you can get your five-star character in one draw in Genshin or whatever. Trust me, some of you guys will just consider, maybe I should do that. So I mean it's a bit of a simplistic and ridiculous example, but that's kind of work. Oh, somebody give me an example. Okay, yeah. So here's another example. So if somebody gave this example, if I tell you, if you sell me your soul, you can meet BTS, I guarantee you some people will do. They were just like, sure, sign me up. Where do I sign on a piece of paper? This is what happens when desire overtakes you. You don't pause to go like, hang on, is it worth paying the price that so Fernand represents that really, really much, and he represents what happens as well, which is that you will not consider what is right and what is wrong at that point. You only consider, I want this thing, so I'll do whatever it takes. You have no sense of morality, you have no sense of ethics or or consciousness. What happens then is you could do a lot of kind of disgusting stuff to get it done. So this is partly the reason why people can be brainwashed or people can be convinced to do a lot of horrible things to other people. Because if I tell you to stab that guy over there because he is holding, I don't know, your parents hostage, something like that. Basically, if I can convince you someone or a group of people are doing something that directly prevents you from doing what you want or getting what you want, chances of you doing something relatively harmful to them is pretty damn high. So Fernand represents that. He represents what happens when your emotions is completely out there and completely out of control. When the things that you want, your feeling, your desire to want something is too much and it controls you and you don't control it. Now, we will see this bite him in the butt later on, like much later on. But so this is basically Fernand for now. So he represents people who want something and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get it. They basically do a lot of manipulation in a way which is like the emotional one, where they'll try to talk to you or they try to like get you to do something if you want, either through threatening you or flattering you, which Fernand kind of tries, right? You see him run through all the tactics and techniques. So he's a much more emotional kind of bad guy. He's very um hot-headed in that way. He just runs and does as he wants to, which is quite contradictory to Dangla. So basically that's Fernand for now, and we will not see him until for a while actually after this, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, we will see him in chapter 5 and 6, if I'm not mistaken. And then after that we won't see him for a while. But then that's more than enough to show you the repercussions of this kind of people. And one last thing, the thing that is the most unforgivable in a way for people like Fernand, right, is that they have no sense of what's the one? It's kind of traditional, but they have no sense of honor. They will do whatever it takes to get what they want, even if they have to shortcut their way through, and then they will kind of leave the consequences for later. Which is actually a problem because it it will bite you in the butt later, sooner or later, no matter when, it will come back and bite you. And the worst part is if it doesn't bite you, it will bite your family or your children. Um, mild spoiler, which is exactly what happens to him. But we will come back to that later. So that's Fernand for now, okay? Now, oh, by the way, hang on, give me a second. Okay, so now that I've kind of elaborated a bit about this guy, do you guys have anybody in mind now? I'm pretty sure you guys should have someone in mind. High school is a very fun place. Well, fun. Quotation mark. Fun. Okay. If you guys have never met anyone like this, you're freaking lucky. That's all I'm gonna say. Really? None of you guys not English. None of you guys have ever met someone like this before? Where they will just kind of go like straight up trigger you, take you on like emotional roller coasters and say, that kind of thing? None? Keep people. Don't think so. Don't think so. That's not like not that's not a yes, not for sure, but okay. But so this is one thing that you have to watch out for when you meet people. Sometimes they are extremely emotional. They are like really, really like amped up. Like, so they will do whatever it takes to kind of ban you. Honestly speaking, right, people, if you cannot think of anyone, you're probably one of them. Which is on. Okay, here's the thing. One more thing I want to add about Fernand. His reaction and what he wants to do and everything is very, very natural. Very, very natural. If you guys meet, okay, I'm sorry, Bagel, but I know you don't like children, but if you guys meet children, right, they're very good at doing what Fernand is doing. They will cycle through their tools or getting you to do something that they want. They'll go like, they will ask you what they'll ask you, can I they have it first? And when you say no, you will see them put on their actor's mask. They will cry, they will shout, they will scream, they will threaten you. I don't know, man. Like I don't know what 7 year olds will threaten you. Like, I will leave the house. I'm like, okay, go sleep with the dog. That kind of thing. But it is a miniature version of that. And when you scale it up, right, it's basically that. So you will meet people like this. Just watch out, okay? Arguably relatively harmless until he groups with someone else. Okay, these kind of people are relatively like whatever until they pair with someone else, and we will talk about this someone else later. Now, that aside, we will now move to the uh hang on. Now we will move on to the biggest disappointment. Okay, the idiot Kadarus. No brain, no action. So, like, kind of recapping on what I mentioned last time in chapter 1, chapter 2, which is that you don't know what to feel about this guy. Because it's kind of tragic as well. If he knows he's an idiot and he's doing what he's doing, at the very least, we can understand and have a slight tiny bit of respect knowing that this guy is just a moron. He knows he's a moron and he's playing his role. So, at the very, very bare minimum, I can respect you for playing your role. The problem is if he doesn't even know. Ah, boy, oh boy, this is what we call they're just built different, and I don't even mean that in a very like mocking way. It's kind of a sad thing for him. Now, talking about Cadorus, as I was hinting about just now about Fernand, right? The problem with him, and the reason why I say that it was so important for us to try to decide if he actually knows what he's doing is everything he does, right, is literal clickbait. So if you remember from chapter 2, right, everything he says, everything he does, right, is just trying to trigger someone. He's trying to elicit a response from someone just to see what happens. But then what? He doesn't seem to know what he's doing, he doesn't seem to know how to use the reaction that he gets. Dangla, on the other hand, is very different. We will talk about that later. So he just kind of jabs at people, ha ha ha, you see, I'm making fun of you, but then that's it. The problem is when he does that, right? So this is when it kind of spills onto real life. Sometimes people like this, right, where they are just jokers in general, but they are like jokers with no meaning, or in a way they do the jokes just for the sake of doing the jokes. They don't understand why they're doing it. So what actually happens then is they can compromise the safety of a lot of people around them. Now, why do I say that? Partly the reason why Edmond got into trouble, and I'm almost willing to attribute mainly the reason why Edmond got into trouble is because of this genius over here. Not only did he just couldn't shut his mouth and blab like an old lady with nothing else better to do in their life, gossiping away about what he did, what he happened. And by the way, it's not even true. He embellished so many details, right? What happened then also was that he just keeps seeking drama, right? So after leaving Edmond's house, he meets Danglars. He goes have a drink with Danglars, and this is where Fernand leaves the Catalans. He leaves the house of Mercedes, and he bumps into them. And this genius decides to trigger him by going um um by doing many things. So one of the things he did was that he attacks his identity, which is the stupidest thing a person can ever do. You have seen some people do something like this before, even in high school and eventually in college as well, which is that people will say that you think you're very smart, but you're not, and it triggers certain people more than others because some people that's their whole identity, and when you start attacking their identity, they feel threatened and they get mad. Now the funny thing is, Fernand is exactly that. Fernand sees himself as a very capable person. Don't you dare question me. And this genius decides to do this. And the third bullet point, I thought you were Catalan. Now it's kind of a bit of a stereotype. So, but what the idea is that the Spanish, the Spanish people, especially the people from the Catalanian area, which is somewhere to the south of Spain near France, they are relatively bold. Means they're very, very brave. They're very bold. They are very fearless in a way. And he's basically attacking him by saying, "Oh, but I thought you people are supposed to be, very fearless. Why would you let this French boy push you around in a way?" And that triggered him big time. And this is what I mean by what he did has consequences. Danglars notices it, which we will talk, which we will see later in the slides talking about Danglars. Danglars notices and he goes like, so this guy has a chip on his shoulder. And here's the thing, very different from Cadarus, Danglars actually knows how to weaponize that weakness. He actually knows how to go like, oh, I know, okay, that's interesting. He has that reaction. We'll talk about that a bit more. Danglars is relatively long because you will see what I said is relatively long. He also told Fernand that, oh, you look like you're gonna jump off into the sea, kill yourself, which honestly, Fernand seemed like he's kind of going to do that. You guys will notice in this story, right? A lot of people who are in love have this tendency to want to kill themselves and not wanting to live without them. It's kind of a romantic era trope. I don't know what's wrong with people who want to die because their lover is dead or something like that, but okay. Then okay, now here's the thing. So first he attacks Fernand. The second thing he does is that he triggered him the biggest way, which is that, did you see that over there? I think I saw Edmond and Mercedes walking down. I'm like, oh my lord, this guy. So this is what I mean by I don't know if he's really that clueless, but if he is, it's so it's borderline insensitive. Okay, so he kind of knows that Fernand actually it's not he already knows Fernand has been rejected by Mercedes, right? So it's like if you know your friend's rejected by their crush, it depends on how good a friend you are. You don't go and poke at them and say, "Oh, do you see this person and this person? He or she was busy hoo ha," just to try to trigger the person. This guy did exactly that. So he was like, "Oh, do you see that? I think I just saw Edmond and Mercedes," and Fernand literally almost lost it because he was like, why are you telling me to see that when I literally ran away not to be those two people, right? So again, I really don't know if Dumas tried to wrote him this way purposefully, but if it really is, it tells you one thing: don't be an idiot. Actually, you know what? It's so hard to not be an idiot when you don't even know you're an idiot in the first place, which is what I mean by it's very tragic. Some people just don't know that they are an idiot. So you can't tell somebody that they're an idiot if they don't think they're an idiot. So what happens then is that they just think they're right the whole time, or they just live in blissful ignorance, which is exactly this guy. That's the reason why I chose this dragon for his face. And frankly, I think I'm kind of insulting Ghidorah by putting the dumbass face for him. Because even then, I'm pretty sure I can find somebody who is even more dumbass than this guy. But like I said, there's a difference between a fool, somebody who is inexperienced, they don't know, they're not mature enough, compared to this guy who you just don't know. Does he actually know he's an idiot? And if he does, it's a problem. And if he doesn't know, it's even worse, right? So it's like you get to see both sides. What happens? Now, the arguably the most egregious one is he was not helpful at all. So like I said before in part two, right? He professes to be Edmond's friend, right? We are good neighbors, we should do everything. When we know for a fact that he says one thing, but he does something else entirely, which is exactly what Edmond describes him. Arguably, the biggest crime we can attribute to Caderousse was the fact that he did not protect his friend. Well, friend, quotation mark, friend, okay? What did he do when he was with Danglars and Fernand? He got drunk, piss drunk, to the point that he almost does not know what's going on around him. And when he begins to realize that Danglars and Fernand are like plotting, right? They're talking about like, oh, maybe we should do this to Edmond and stuff. He actually goes like, wait, who's talking about killing Edmond? Nobody will kill him. You see this line? Kill Dantes, he said. Who's talking about killing Dantes? I don't want him killed. He's my friend. This morning he offered to share his money with me as I shared mine with him. By the way, this is very rich for him to say that because he didn't say it in a nice way in part two when he said that, oh, he was so generous, he wanted to loan it to me. He said it as in that, oh, he thinks he's so great, he wants to give me money. So this guy is just like, I don't know what does he want. It's like, you can either choose to think Edmond is cocky, oops, right? Or he's actually your friend. And again, further evidence that this guy just doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Like, just whatever he says just comes out and he just says whatever he wants. I don't want anyone to kill Dantes, and you will notice the italics. The italics is basically my comment, right? But he's drunk like AF to the point that he doesn't even can't do anything, right? If you really are a friend at this moment, you need to do something. You need to kind of say that whatever you guys are doing, you guys need to stop doing it because you're threatening my friend. The problem is he seems to be just there to kind of be there. Again, being a fool with no reason. He's just there to go, like, oh yeah, I will not have you harm my friend, but then what the heck did you do? Zero, nada, nothing. He's just drunk and even in the chapter itself, right? Danglars and like Fernand are basically trying to dose him, drug him to the point that he's insensible. If you read the chapter again, if you guys didn't catch it, it was like every time Caderousse wakes up, right? Danglars like here, you're drunk. Have another drink, and he takes a drink and he gets out again. And when he wakes up, Danglars will ask Fernand give him a drink, and they're basically just trying to like drug him to the point that he's so like oblivious of what's going on. So yeah, not helpful at all. Now, quiz. Okay. Do you guys actually understand this line? The flood proved it beyond a doubt. All wicked men do water drink. This was the line where he sang when he was drunk, when he was talking to them. Do this for me. Hang on. Let me put it on a yes. Oh. So you notice I put a yes or no in the general and not the general chat, but in the chat. Emote the one that the answer that you have. Okay, most of you guys never read the Bible before. Quite sure you guys know it. Sparkle. No. Everyone else? So we got someone who does not know what this refers to. I should be a priest at this point, considering how many times I have to tell you guys the Bible stories. Convert you to my religion. Worship my God. Okay, fine. Alright, I'll tell you guys what this means. There's a duality to this meaning here. So I'll talk about the general biblical story first, then I'll tell you how it relates to the story. Sorry. I'll tell you about the biblical story first, and then I'll tell you how that relates to this. Now, in the Bible, there's especially in the Old Testament, it was said that God was very displeased with the people and the world that He has created. So in order for Him, he just can't stand it, the corruption, how bad everyone is. So He decides to wipe the whole world clean. clean slate, erase everybody off the existence. So the way he chose to do that is by having a huge flood to kill everything. Now, if anybody knows what happens next, is that there's a man who proved to be loyal and very faithful to God, and his name is Noah. And Noah created an ark, a huge ship, in order to contain two of every animal species that God instructed him to do, and they survived. And that's how life continued after the flood. What this line actually here means, okay, is all wicked men eat drink water, because the flood is there to kill all the evil people, right? So when you are, when you're dying by drowning, you're literally drinking water, right? So that is the connection, the tiny connection to the story first. Now, the main connection here is this. Catharus is basically saying that it's actually written in the story. I didn't write the quote down, but what he's basically saying is that, oh yeah, you see, I drink. What he's saying is that this is really funny. You see, I drink so much alcohol is because I'm a good person. I'm paraphrasing, okay? Because the wicked does not dare to drink alcohol, because if they get drunk, they don't know what will come out from their mouth. What he's basically saying is bad people don't take alcohol because they are afraid if they take alcohol, some random stuff will blur out from their mouth and they will be proven to be evil because they're drunk, right? They cannot control themselves. And he's basically so proud. He say, "You see, I'm such a great guy. I can drink all this alcohol and this wine I want, because no matter what happens, I will not say anything stupid because I'm not an evil person." So it's kind of like a perverted sense of understanding this line. When we understand in this situation, ironically, if he's drinking water, he might be doing something useful for Edmond. Again, going back to my point, if he was drunk, how exactly are you going to help your friend when you're like drunk out of your mind right now? So if he was drinking water, it's actually the other way around. Funny enough, if he's drinking water now, he's not a wicked person. He's actually a good person because he's staying sober to help Edmond. So this line, when I kind of got translation for it, because the first time I heard this line was in French. When I got translation for it, that's how I interpreted it. It's like double layer meaning to it. And funnily enough, actually, the two villains did not touch their alcohol at all. You will see this later in for Dangla. So basically, this is what the significance of the line is. Now the last line is the hardest one to swallow. Catharus being an idiot is not enough. It is as if that he is an idiot and he's kind of pushing Dangla and Fernand together. So what do I mean by say that? You see this line here. You have the brains of an oyster, my friend. He's basically again insulting Fernand. You don't have a brain. Shut up. Don't think. And Dangla here, who is a sharp one, crafty as a Greek, will prove you wrong. So he unintentionally kind of go like, hey, by the way, you don't have the brains to fix this problem. Like, I have somebody here who can fix it for you. He didn't say that, nor did he mean that. By doing this, he kind of gave like light bulbs to Dangla and Fernand. And again, like I said before, Fernand really does not have the intellectual capability to kind of scheme and plot. He's just more of a, if there's a problem, we take a stick, bonk each other, and see what happens. He doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that can scheme. So like I said just now, people like him are relatively harmless because they only know one method to solve problems. Now when I say harmless, it doesn't mean that they cause you a crap ton of misery because they'll manipulate and do whatever things. But when you pair him with somebody who can manipulate things and understand manipulation, your life begins to suffer like hell because they know every way to make you miserable. We will see that later when we talk about Dangla. Now, as I mentioned over here, crafty as a Greek. Brownie points for those who actually know who this refers to. Can somebody tell me who the crafty Greek is? I actually kind of think of it. I don't think I've taught you guys this before. We never really covered ancient stories that much. Oh wait, hang on. I think I know someone who does. Dinosaur, you should know. You read Greek myths before. There's somebody in Greek mythology that's famous for being extremely crafty. And he's just a human being. He's not even a demigod. Any idea?
No.
Ayah. Taku, any idea? Where is Taku? Why is she always like I can hear but that's it. It's like yes, no. Wait, hang on. Let me wait, yo. Okay, say that again.
Wait, no, I'm not sure.
Hey, people. Okay, you know what? Do you guys know who Achilles is?
Oh,
Is that a yes, I think so, or no, I don't know?
the guy with the weakness in his heel.
Yes, literally where we got the name Achilles heel from. Yes, you know him. So, I guess I might have to do the Trojan War next. I guess the Greek he's referring to is Odysseus, the guy, the man who came up with the idea of the Trojan horse in order to defeat the Trojans in the Trojan War. How many times do I need to say Trojan? Funnily enough, Achilles is his exact opposite. So Achilles is the warrior, the undefeatable warrior. Odysseus is not a warrior. He's a thinker. He's the person that will find some crafty, sneaky strategy to win. So Caterus is basically associating him with being Odysseus. Honestly, it's not quite wrong because Odysseus is quite a piece of work as well. Even though he's a hero in his own story, but he's kind of piece of work, honestly. So going back to Caterus, he's basically saying that I have a person that knows how to use his brain here. So maybe, you two can kind of, he's trying to be matchmaker or something. And this is why I feel that all the three words I give to all three of them, idiot is the best one to explain Caterus because he really is an idiot in a good way and a bad way. He's an idiot in a good way because that's why when you guys say that he's like a joker and a comic relief, right? It's not entirely wrong. He really is in a good way. But understand this. This is where it kind of relates over to real life. The joker or the person who's always an idiot, right? If they do it with no purpose and they don't understand what they're doing, they become a danger. They are a hazard to people because they do things and they say things without thinking it through their head. So what happens then is they will unintentionally piss people off, or they will do what Caterus just did, which is that they'll bring the worst people together, and the worst kind of thing happens to them, to people around them. And this is why it's so important for us to actually think about, does he actually know what he's doing? Because again, if he knows what he's doing, he's guilty as hell. And if he doesn't know what he's doing, it's kind of tragic and guilty at the same time because it means that he's caused Edmond so much pain without him even knowing how much pain he's caused Edmond. Now, the good news is we kind of get an answer for this later on in the story. So we'll find out more about Ezio Caderus. Oh my god, this guy really pisses me off when I read his story. So like I said, when you relate this into real life, right, we always have to be cautious about people who try to provoke other people, even though it's for fun. So that's I think I mentioned to you guys this before. Sorry, I think I mentioned this to you guys before. You can provoke your friends for fun. You need to see when and how. You do not. Okay, let me put it this way: if you and your best friend are together and some random person, new person is in your group, right? You guys will notice that you guys don't talk as usual because you guys have this stranger next to you and you don't know. One, you're not comfortable because there's this new person. Are they good? Are they bad? And whatever, right? So the way you guys interact will still be like pretty good, but not to that point where you guys can just say whatever you want in front of each other. Because of one, you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of a new person, and two, you do not know what this person is capable of. You don't know if they're good or if they're bad. Caterus basically does not have the filter. He just kind of does whatever he wants. At least on the surface over here. But then again, to be fair to him, he does know Fernand and he does know Dangla. So what's the second lesson here? Use your eyes and use your ears. Look at the situation. He did not understand the gravity of the situation on how dangerous it was for him to put these two people who already have a problem with Edmond together. Now, Again, I'm going to try to defend him by saying, one, he probably doesn't even know Dangla is thinking of getting rid of M1 because Dangla is just that good at manipulating people. And he's so good at being having a poker face, he doesn't really know. But Fernand, in a way, it was very obvious. Lah. To be really honest, I can't really spare him for that because he even told Fernand, right? Fernand has been spurred by Mercedes. Then, yeah, stop picking on him. So, again, going back to the example I gave, which is that, if your best friend just got rejected by his crush, you don't randomly in front of the whole damn world go like, ha ha ha, she rejected you. That's the fastest way for you to ruin your friendship. You can do it to them in person, kind of, in private, kind of, up to your discretion, but you don't do it in front of the whole world. Now, granted, Dangla is not the whole world. Unfortunately, he is definitely not the kind of person you want to leak information to. So he represents the second kind of person that now to be fair, there's a lot of kinds of persons, but he kind of embodies all the idiots out there that you meet. Now I say idiots in the mildest and gentlest manner. I don't mean to insult anyone, but you will meet people like that where they do not know what's going on, they do not know what they're saying. They just kind of do whatever they want. So what happens is they end up creating a lot of problems for people. Now, like I said, what is or what are the problems that he has created for Edmond is here. Dangla. So the last villain and the last character in these two chapters which play a huge significant role, and again I mentioned this before, arguably the story would not have even existed if he wasn't in it, is Dangla. Now, I added a new title for him, which is Puppeteer, because when you read chapter 3 and chapter 4, you will very quickly notice that he has this tendency of manipulating people in a very sophisticated way. It's like he is like a level 100 manipulator and Fernand is like level 10. That's how huge the difference is. As a matter of fact, you even see it later in chapter 4 as well. Now, the way I would describe him in the first line, as you can see, the brains who does. Oh crap, that's actually embarrassing. That's a grammar mistake. Does the brains who does his best not to connect to anyone. So he does his best to just not. Hang on. He does his best to keep his distance. He doesn't want to be involved with. Okay, sorry, not he doesn't want to involve. He wants to dip his hand into the cookie jar far enough that he can get what he wants, but people don't know it was him. So how does he do this? You will see. So we see that he senses opportunity. We know that he's jealous because Dumas spent a lot of words describing how he feels in chapter 1 and chapter 2. You can also see that he's extremely perceptive. Perceptive in a way which is that he seems to be able to read and tell what people are thinking very, very well. He could tell that Cadarus is envious. And this kind of something that I hinted on in chapter 2 as well. Cadarus's eyes keeps going towards money and gold. He's a bit of a kleptomaniac. He's like, gold, money, ooh, I want it. And you will actually see it later on in the story where he comes back to bite him in the butt as well. So he can tell and he knows Cadarus is jealous of Edmond. He just does not know how to show his jealousy. Or in a way, he hides his jealousy because maybe the rules or the laws or whatever is preventing him from doing so. Fernand is very different. Fernand openly wears his discontent. Like, he doesn't even care. He doesn't hide. So, basically, what Dangla has in front of both of him, as he has worded it, I have a coward and I have an idiot. What the heck am I supposed to do? Now, the coward turns out to be very useful for him, which we'll talk about it later on, right? You can also see and we kind of see him. He become very sinister after this because he cooked up the idea on how to get Edmond into trouble and get him out of the way. And he does not. What's the word I'm looking for? He does not think twice. He doesn't go that maybe that's not what I want to do. No. He really wants to do it. But as he was sitting there and as he was listening to Cadarus and Fernand talking and discussing things, he very, very quickly pieces a lot of things together and he realizes that actually I have a plan. There's a way for me to mess with the plan of Edmond's life, which is to do something. Question is, what? Now, what makes Dangla arguably very, very scary is that he demonstrates a bit of psychotic tendency. Now, I use this word in the psychological sense, which is that he does not care about people. He could care less what happens to Cadarus nor what happens to Fernand. The only thing he cares about is there anything these two geniuses can do for me to get what I want? And you see this in the last bullet point. People are tools. Idiots, Dangla muttered. What does it matter whether she kills herself or not, provided Dantes does not become captain? So this is the part where I will spend a bit of time talking about what the other steps he took. Okay, and this. Stop doing that. Fair bit of warning. I broke his entire process of manipulation down into like steps, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Before I continue, I'm going to give a disclaimer. This is purely for educational purposes. I am not responsible for what you guys do with what I'm about to tell you. And I'll say this again. You try any of these things, one serves you right. You are a bad person and you deserve to, well, a certain level of punishment. 2, you suck. Bring me the great dishonor. 3, I will pretend I don't know you because it's for my safety. What's the other one? My sanity. I don't want people to kind of ask me why I'm corrupting the youth. Well, then I don't really need to do that. That job's been done for me already. Next. Manipulation. Spelling, boy. Spelling. You know how to spell properly? I have a feeling that a lot of people are starting like taking pens and paper. Again, people, it's for educational purposes. I'm not responsible for what the hell is going to happen next, okay? Now, we see Dangla this from the beginning of the chapter until the end. He really, really plays the whole situation and the position. Oh my god, man. Seriously, you people. Okay. Now, first things first, understand what you want. Now, Dangla knows what he wants. He wants Edmond to fail. No matter what happens, it's very simple for him. I just don't want him to be captain. Right? Whatever it takes. Then he finds people whose goals align with him. Now, to be real honest, I'm being quite generous when I say find people. It's more like he bumped into it and the opportunity showed and he went, oh, okay, then there's a chance here. So now this kind of mirrors the chapter, so I'm just gonna go step by step. So find others whose goal aligns with yours. Why do I make it sound like I'm trying to motivate you guys to do something, man? Again, educational purposes. So this is the point where he meets Fernand, and Fernand was talking, and then he begins to say things and talk to them, and he begins to notice, Fernand doesn't seem to really like Edmond. What does he do? He decides to confirm because Fernand's giving cues, right? Cues like he's showing he's not happy whenever Candace talks about Edmond. He can tell that he's talking about who's going to get rid of this man for me and blah like that, but he's quite sure. So what does he do? He tests, he checks. How does he check? He pretends he doesn't understand anything. That's the first thing. So Cadrus says, you should understand what it means, right, Dangla? Because Cadrus also was playing this game as well, but again, in his own foolish way. He was like, oh, now, as you can see, Dangla, he's very depressed, and it so happens that the Edmond Dantes touched back down and is back today. You know what that means? And he just pretends to be an idiot and says, no, I do not know what you mean. And of course, Cadrus so very, very helpfully tell him, Mercedes has rejected Fernand. Ding! And he goes like, so this person really, really doesn't like him. Now again, it's not much to go on with because the horse did not open his mouth. Fernand didn't say anything. He's just inferring based on the thing. So what does he do? He needs to find methods to try to get the information easier. Because here's the thing. The moment you get too curious about something, people will start getting very suspicious. It's the kind of thing where you start asking a friend about a guy or a girl, and they start looking at you like, why are you so interested in this random whoever person? And by the way, you don't even need to ask any questions. You need to ask one. and your friends start looking at you very weird. They go like, why are you interested? When you're like, I'm just curious, man. But and they're like, no, you're onto something. So Dangla can't have that. He really can't. He does not want. He's not taking any chances. So what does he do? He does the classic thing. He tries to get people drunk. So it's actually described that when Cadrus was like gulping his wine down, he didn't. He sipped his wine. As a matter of fact, as the chapter goes on, he doesn't even touch his wine at all. He pretends to drink it and he kind of spills a bit on the side and into the ground. But because Cadrus is so drunk, he can't tell. Now what does he do? He gets enough information, right? So Fernand starts like telling him or like hinting a bit of things. So now that he has his information, but that's not enough. He needs to be sure. He needs to be absolutely sure that he really doesn't like Edmond. So he did not lose one pang that Fernand endured. This thing that he has to endure was when Caderus was basically triggering him like, oh, do you see that? That's where Edmond and Mercedes was walking into the part where I say that he, or no, God knows why he decides to trigger Fernand. And Fernand got pissed off and he immediately noticed that as well. So it is true. So he's basically stacking evidence upon evidence to be very, very sure this person is the same as him. But he can't ask him. Some of you might be thinking, just ask him. You can't. The moment you open your mouth and ask him, right? Fernand now knows. He purposely does not want to be the one that starts it because then he will look guilty. He needs Fernand to be the one that starts the conversation. So now it is his turn to trigger Fernand. What does he do? He says, oh, well, I guess, Edmond really has everything. Let's drink to Edmond. And he noticed that it really pissed him off Fernand even more, right? So, and then he kind of casually mentions it like a conversation. And this is where the closest he ever gets to directly asking Fernand. He basically throws a sentence out there that is also like a bait just to see if it takes it. And by the way, I know for a fact you guys do this. Okay, so don't even deny it. So what he does is, so my good sir, not everyone I think is happy about this marriage. Seems relatively innocent, right? Until you realize that he's basically testing Fernand. He's basically quote in quote asking Fernand, you must be very unhappy in an extremely indirect way and fitting moment because he set up the situation. You see, he set up the situation to say, you see, oh my god, we should. Well done to Edmond. Congratulations to him. So when Fernand reacts this way, he has a very natural conversation continuation by saying, oh, you don't seem to be happy about his happiness. He manipulated Fernand to the point that he even created a situation so that he can find out about the information. So now once he kind of confirms, he needs a way. No point of you finding people who wants to conspire with you if you don't have a way. So he have his way. Now, to be real honest, he actually cycled through a few options. One of the options he cycled through was this one, which is that he actually literally just asking why don't you just kill him? And Fernand was like, no, if I kill him, Mercedes will kill herself. And then she's just like, oh my god, this idiot. Just I don't care about your freaking love life. Just get rid of him. I don't want him to be captain. Again, psychotic tendencies. Not really helpful. Then, as he was playing the situation in his head, he goes like, hang on, Edmond needs to go to Paris. And this actually arguably where I don't want to use the word fault, but Edmond really, really, really should have gotten out of there when he started talking to Dangla. It's not that he didn't know Dangla was a bad person, but he doesn't seem to understand that if you already know that he's not quite the trustworthy person, don't tell him so much information because the way he actually got this idea was after Cadorus triggered Fernand, right? Cadorus was being the typical himself. He's like, hey, you two, come, right? And Mercedes and Edmond approaches their table and they had a short conversation there. Now Dangla put on a mask and say, oh yeah, congratulations, are you getting married or when are you getting married? Blah 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 blah. And he found out that he's going to Paris. And Edmond tells him that, oh, I have to deliver a letter. It was Captain Leclerc's last wish. And click, that gave him the light bulb. So his brain started going like, hang on, that letter is from Napoleon for sure. Or at least it's from somebody who the government does not like. I can tell somebody, ooh, this is going to be good. So at that moment, everything clicked for him. He knows what he needs to do now. So he has a method already. So now all he needs to do is to be absolutely sure that this person who shares the same goal as him really, really is that way and he can use him. Arguably, this is the hardest step. Okay, so what does he do? He tries to pretend to be a nice person. What does that mean? He tries to pretend to be like, oh, I know it's so sad. I wish I can help you. If somebody ever tells you that in person, and you even sense they're being disingenuous or like being slightly manipulative, run. Because they are basically trying to see if they can use you, and this is exactly what happens to him. You seem agreeable enough, you seem like a very nice guy, oh, I wish I can do something about it. And Fernand immediately went like, yes, I hope you can. Now Fernand didn't say it, but Fernand looked at him in a way, right? Now, he is not going to be the person that goes, I have a plan for you. He's not going to do that. He's just going to, oh, well, good luck. He pretends to leave, and then, and Fernand's like, yes, if I get, if there's a way for me to get vengeance, if you can help me, Fernand actually literally would say, if you can help me, I will do it. And now, he did not immediately accept it. He basically tried to pretend again that, oh, I don't you're talking about, Edmond. Because Fernand kind of also picked up like he doesn't like Edmond, and he basically said that I'm very sure you don't like Edmond as well. Surely you can help me. Now, Dangar, again, like I said, Dangar didn't straight up agree with it. He just basically said, I don't know what you're talking about at all. You see, that's why I said over here. Even better still, get them to persuade you. So now you see, right? Dangar did something that was very, 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 very manipulative, which is he indirectly and somewhat directly transferred the blame or the responsibility of getting Edmond into jail from him to Fernand. Because the idea is in his head, right? But he didn't do anything about it. He didn't execute it. Now, does he want to do it? Yes. But as long as he doesn't open his mouth and say, I have a plan, he is technically innocent because it's still an idea in his head, right? So now what he needs to do is he needs to make the situation in a way where Fernand is the one who has to persuade him. So what does he do? He just tells him, right, now see here, have some reason to hate Dantes? None, I swear. Oh, actually, I shouldn't have italicized this. Sorry, I need to change the font. I swear, I saw you were unhappy and just took interest. I was just curious, that's all. But if you imagine, oh, you know what, if I'm going to do this, let me change this. I accidentally hit the keyboard. Let me italicize this. And nope, swap the screen. Next. What are you guys looking at? Let me see. Blah. Yeah, good, cool. Okay, I changed the font. So I saw you were unhappy and took interest. Again, he's like, you seem so sad. I was just curious. I was just being carried. I just want to show my concern. Any other word people can use to basically say the same sentence to get the same job done. But if you are going to imagine I will act on my behalf, then farewell, bye bye. You can deal with it on your own. And he just decides to tend to leave. This is a manipulation tactic. He's basically forcing Fernand to make a decision at that point. Because if he sits there, there's no point. Because he's not gonna get anything done. He needs a way to make Fernand make a decision. So what does he do? He just pretends to leave. Pretending to leave is very serious because then at that point Fernand realizes that he has to do something. If he doesn't say anything right now, and if Dangar leaves, he cannot do anything else because Dangar left. He can't pick up the phone later and say, oh, by the way, I think I've reconsidered your option, right? He can't. There's no way. So he forced him by deciding to step out and leave to make a decision. And what was the decision? He volunteers. Right? And the line that he says, going back to this, is no, stay. When it comes down to it, it's of no matter to me whether you have some bone to pick with Dantes or not. I do, and I freely admit it. Find the means, and I shall carry it out. So, in a way, when you look at it, right, there's no difference between Fernand and Tangla. They both want what they want, and they don't care what you want. They just want to make sure that what they want, they can get it. The only reason why I say that Fernand is a bit more useless in a way is that he doesn't have a brain, which is actually in this situation is relatively fortunate. As you can see, Dangla played him like a flute. played him so well. He just basically did everything he needed to do just to kind of get him to give a response. So now the moment he says that, Dangla can go like, oh, okay, I guess I have to help you now because you backed me. But we know he wants to do this. It's a lame excuse just so that he can. It's a way of covering his ass. Okay, because next time when something happens, I didn't do anything. I didn't want to do it. I wasn't going to leave. Fernand was the one who asked me to do it. If this sounds something like a child would do, yeah. And by the way, it's highly efficient because at that point it becomes he says, she says. So what he does now is he executes his method. Now, even in his execution, he's so crafty. He knows there's no way to tell the police without getting himself involved. And he also knows there's no way he can get Fernand to be his lapdog to go up to the police and say, hey, there's this person who has a letter. Because the moment he walks to the police station, the police will make him sign the letter. And if he signs the letter and Mercedes finds out, game over. So what's the plan? The plan is you tell them without telling them. Basically, pen and paper. So he took a pen and he took the ink and he wrote with his left hand. Now, the book actually tells you why he wrote it in his left hand because your handwriting is recognizable. So it's something like, when you try to bully, again, just as an example, you try to bully someone online, people do this all the time. They create like multiple Instagram accounts and stuff like that and they spam a person when they're actually the same person. What this does is, you can't tell who you are, at least through your username. So he's basically doing that. He's trying to, you see, again, another layer of security. He's really, really trying to distance himself from the crime. And I don't know what you're talking about. Because if the police and anybody comes to him with that note, and he will just say, I don't know, that handwriting is so ugly. Look at my handwriting; it's so neat, not completely like yours. I do not know what you're talking about. You see, he's already planning like 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, just in case, so he can cover his butt. So he used the pen and ink and he wrote on paper, and then he shows Fernando, you see, this works. Now, there's a slight hiccup in this plan so up to this point because Fedorus wakes up and he realizes that, oh boy, you guys are up to no good. This is the part where it is the closest for Fedorus to actually do something. As in, this is his final chance. If he doesn't do anything at this point, it is too late. Unfortunately, spoiler, he did jack squat. So, what Dangla did was, what? Writing a letter to Ham Edmond would not do that. And he crunched the paper in front of him and he threw it away. Well, he didn't throw it in a bin, he threw it on the side of the road, right? And Cadorus took it and said, okay, yay, nobody will harm Edmond because he's my friend. With friends like these, right? So then at this point, his only job left is to make sure Fernand actually does it. And actually, as a matter of fact, Fernand does it because Fernand was so preoccupied with taking the note to the police, right? When Cadorus said, let's go back to Marseille, and he's like, nah, I don't want to. I'm going back to the somewhere else, the opposite direction. And Dangla kind of knew what was going on. He's like, yes, my plan is working. And just to be very, very sure, as he's taking Cadorus away from the scene, right, he looks back again and he saw him, Fernand, kneel down, pick up the paper that he crumpled and run towards the nearest police station. And Dangla is like, hey, my plan is working. Again, educational purposes. I'm not responsible for whatever you guys are doing. So you can see, right, Dangla's extremely manipulative. So he, in a way, he demonstrates the dark side of having a brain. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but because he uses his intellect, right, in the worst way possible, which is to ruin people's lives. And by the way, whether he knows it or not, he has effectively ruined Fernand's life as well, indirectly, because now okay, and this is where we kind of, I will try to link Bangla into real world. Will you find people like this? Yes, you will. You will find people like this where they will go to extreme lengths to make your life miserable. You will. Now, what does it mean when I say that he has effectively doomed the people who associates with him or who helped him do it? Because if the victim, which is in this case Edmond, ever escapes and figures it out, Edmond doesn't only come for Danglars, he comes for Fernand as well. If Fernand just had the spine to say, you know what, fine, forget it, I'm rejected by a woman, what can I do? And walks away, one, this probably won't be a problem in the first place. Two, the crime will have solely resided upon Danglars himself. But he didn't. He manipulated and he twisted and he used people around him as tools. The consequence actually is that the tools eventually become guilty as well. Now, it's hard for us to feel sympathetic for Fernand in this situation because he's kind of an ass as well. But take this and apply it to real life where an innocent person is being used by someone like this. You will see this all the time. The person can be like Cadarus, who is a complete moron, or a person who is like Fernand, who's just does not like you for whatever reason, or the worst one, the person just doesn't know, or the person has been fed lies and therefore they believe the lies and they act up accordingly because they've been fed lies. So what this does is that it makes your life extremely miserable because nobody believes you. Because everybody believes that, oh yeah, it is your fault because this person told me this, now for better or for worse. Okay? So now this is if you apply it in a relatively student school setting. You put it out in the if you basically if you draw it out further, right, to expand beyond your schooling and like within the school setting, and you apply out in the real world, this thing downright gets horrifying because it is so easy to ruin your life these days. It's so easy. I mean, hell, if you guys want to ruin my life, you can just go to any one of the things I type to you guys and say it, crop it out, put it out of context, and say, you see, this teacher is completely crazy. You see, he said he used this word, that word, blah blah blah, and then I will probably get in trouble. And so I'm like, whatever. That's what it means when you have somebody like this. They have so many ways to find and figure out how to make your life miserable. And you notice that the key ingredient for him to be able to do this is information. Unfortunately, you guys live in a world where information is everywhere. It's on your Facebook, it's on your Instagram, it's on your messages, everything. So every time you type and kid something, right, somebody is out there that can use it and weaponize it against you. So this villain is the most dangerous one because they are not only intelligent, they are ruthless, and they don't care about you as a person. They only see you as an obstacle. They don't go like, oh, but if I ruin Emma's life, his father will be in trouble, he will be jailed away, his future will be ruined. He doesn't care. He's like, whatever. You are nothing but an obstacle in my way. Get out of my way. Hence the reason why I actually call Dangla a bit psychotic. Because psychopaths have no empathy and they don't feel for other people. So this is extremely, in a way, extremely dangerous. So in this chapter, it illustrates three villains that can archetypically you can find in society. Now there's actually one more. Well, we will only see him in chapter 6, 7. Yeah, that one's another piece of work as well. So chapter 3, chapter 4 introduces us to, in a way, as a summary, chapter 3 and chapter 4 introduces us onto how people can make your life miserable. You can be the nicest person on the damn planet, you can be innocent, people will find a way to make something stick. And there are three kinds of villains. One is like Fernand, where they just want something that they want and do whatever they can to get it, but they don't really have the ability to plot or to think. You have somebody like Cadarus, and arguably it's worse because he's supposed to be your friend, but he doesn't really help you, and therefore technically not really your friend. And the third one is the most dangerous one, which is Dangla, where they want to harm you, they know how to harm you, and they're willing to go out their way to harm you. Although they might not do it directly, they will find methods to make sure they get what they want and they do what they want. So this is the reason why chapter 3 and 4, to me, if you actually look at it from a broader perspective, it is extremely impactful. Combine this with every other chapter that you see, right? You notice that Dumas really, really painted the image of a villains very well. Now, like I said again, refer back to disclaimer. This is purely for educational purposes, not to teach you how to do this. And in a way, why am I telling you this is because then you can watch out for this. This is partly the reason why people value honesty so much and why people say that if you're honest, it's a virtue. Because if you're honest, I don't have to second guess anything. Imagine if you have even one person like Dangla around you, you always second guess everything and everyone, especially people around him or her. Because then you go like, I don't like that guy or that girl. I know that that person is kind of cuckoo and they are trying to get me. So everyone that they ever talk to, everyone that they are friends to, can end up being a tool. So what happens to you is you can't trust them at all. So there's like, it's as if like it's not between you and them. It's like between you, them, and the people between you two, because they can you never know when any one of them might be a tool. So this is the danger of manipulation in a way, which is that if it is relatively harmless, is when it's one to one, kind of relatively harmless, but it's still harmful. It's when the manipulator can get people around them and around you to turn against you. That's when your life becomes miserable. So again, I'm telling you this because you need to be careful for people who are too compassionate towards you, unless they are like your best friend or whatever. Be very cautious when they go like, "Oh, it feels so bad. What happened?" and things. Be very careful who you tell, because you'll never know. If you tell this to this person and they're like, "Yes, go on, keep talking." Like Tom over here. Outside they will be like, "Oh yes, that is so sad," but inside they're like Tom right now, like he. Keep going. Therefore, it's very difficult to trust people. And that's the reason why you will hear people saying that they have trust issues. Simply because you don't know if the person's being sincere or not. And you don't know who you can trust. Because the moment you trust someone and they do something to you, right? Everything you ever told them now becomes a weapon to be used against you. So yeah, your life can become miserable basically. Come to think of it, I didn't expect this particular ending to be so pessimistic. That you can't trust anyone. Now Dinosaur and Kai Ching are going to be like, can I trust you? They're going to send each other. How do I know that you have not betrayed me in the past? Well, I'm sorry if friendships are broken, but damn, this is better than Monopoly, man. But anyway, so yeah, so this is basically what this two chapters are about. It's about be very cautious of the people around you. You don't simply tell them things, and if you don't trust someone, trust your gut. Trust your gut. You're probably right. It might not be something as serious as they will manipulate you, but maybe it's because they just have a big mouth. You go like, this person tells everyone everything. Maybe I shouldn't tell them something. That's relatively harmless. That kind of person is like Cadarus. They just don't know when to shut up. They just go like blah 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 blah. But then you get people like, Fernan or Dangla, then your life will be miserable. Like really, really miserable. Now, what's the consequence here in the story then, in terms of the story? Well, the consequence is relatively severe for Edmond. So the chapter that we'll be talking about for the next week is actually three chapters. Hang on, let me pull out my book just to be sure. Where is my book? The next three chapters is oh yeah, three things. Chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. Although I would say don't focus so much on chapter 5 because chapter 5 is relatively direct in terms of the things I want to talk to you guys about. But 6 and 7 is the one that has a lot to talk about. Like a lot. Now the good news is actually let me just type that down first. Give me a second. So that I don't forget. 6 and 7. Now the good news is I kind of figure out how to group some of the chapters together because after chapter 17, oh actually okay, let me put it this way. After about 2 or 3 more Saturdays, the book speeds up quite a bit because I'll start grouping like 5 6 chapters together just to make sure that we can finish the whole story, because by then, right, everything is relatively linear. But a lot of the interesting and important things is in the middle of the story, the beginning, the middle, and the end. So I'm trying to get through a lot of the things that are like just filling in the blanks or whatever by just kind of telling you guys and just getting to it. And like I said, I will tell you which chapters that you should actually read and which chapter you can just kind of just like skim it through and whatever. In this situation, chapter 5, you can just skim it. It's just about celebrations. But 6 and 7, you need to read it very carefully. Well, you just need to know what's going on in 6 and 7 because 6 and 7 is relatively like important and impactful. So yeah, that's basically it for today's little session of mine. So it's basically about the villains, about mm, just be careful around people.